This
So just
conference
don't
will now be
turn off
recorded.
your mic and jump in. Yeah, you just probably heard this conference will now be recorded. Our plan was we're recording this, and our goal is to put this up on our website. So if you want to see a recording or hear a recording of this later, you'll be able to see it on the city's website, I hope. We should be able to make that work just fine. If you have a question, there are a couple easy ways to do that. If you want to submit in advance, if you can see me on YouTube. Yeah, we're going to have it on YouTube. There'll be a link on our website to YouTube to see it. But you can email Barbara here. You might be able to see that, or you can use that chat box that I described that some of you were on earlier. There's a chat box in the upper right-hand section of your screen here. Right now you probably see a red 5 next to it. So that identifies where that chat box is. So watch for that. So once you are, as we get into the question and answer, once we are recognized, take a breath or a second or two, because sometimes there's a lag and we want to help make sure that we're not talking over each other if you haven't used this technology before. And our plan is to go through the question and answer here pretty quickly, or through the presentations pretty quickly, so we can get to that question and answer as best as we can and provide information out. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we need to kind of go through before we get started. I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to Russ first. So Russ, if you want to get going, and then we'll keep rocking from there. Thanks everybody for being on. There's 49 of us now. That's fantastic.
Thanks, Todd. Welcome to our second session. You know, we've committed, we're going to try to do this every Friday morning at 9 o'clock until we don't have to, which I hope comes sooner than later. But welcome. We're up to 50 now, so this is great. I want to turn things over to Ed Lee from the Chamber. Ed has a couple information items to share with you, also probably to give you a little bit of a welcome. So Ed, the floor is yours.
Well, what a town hall in some very challenging circumstances. I want to thank everyone. Boy, 50 is a really good number for this forum. So our partners, City of St. Peter, thank you. Huge shout out to GMG and the blog, Greater Mankato Growth. If you haven't checked that out, it is just fantastic resources for the region. Also want to point everyone in the direction of the Chamber website. We have links to resources there, and we also have a business status reports page. So we're updating that constantly. I mean, day and night, weekends, all the time. So if businesses are changing their hours or their services, or they're essential or not, they are on that page. It's a great first place to go. The Chamber of Commerce, the Board of Directors, has created a page in the shopper, the front page, to direct people to that website, that community gathering place. So take a look at the shopper when it comes out this week. It's hot off the press probably right now, today. And again, just want to get everyone knowing what everyone is doing. And I'll turn it back over to the experts.
Got to find my mic button. Thanks, Ed. Yeah, Chamber, Greater Mankato Growth. We do have John Considine from Greater Mankato Growth joining us again. John's the Director of Regional Business Intelligence. And then we have Patrick Bakers also joining us from Greater Mankato Growth. He is the Vice President as well as the Director of Government and Institutional Affairs. They're both available to us through our affiliation with RETA, the Regional Economic Development Alliance, which is Mankato, North Mankato, St. Peter, Lake Crystal, Eagle Lake, Blue Earth, and Nicollet County. So we're very pleased and blessed to have their assistance. But first item of business that we've put on our agenda is for Mr. Krafke to talk about the Governor's Walls Executive Order 2020 and how that might impact the community.
So let me just give a quick update on that. And this is one of the areas where on our website we'll have a link so you can go to and read it yourself. That link will come up shortly after the meeting here, so you can be ready to read that. It's really clear that they are continuing to push that people stay at home. And so we know that this will impact a lot of businesses within our community. We are going to have a couple of resources, some of which will show at the end of the meeting during the question and answer. And they will also be put up on our website, so you can do some checking on your own. I know I had a couple of businesses contact me I know Ed's had a couple of businesses contact him. Does that mean we're closed? Does it mean we're not closed? Frankly, guys, I don't know that I can give you a definitive answer. We'll try and help you with that, but we can give you some resources so that you can review for yourself if you need help with that. We'll be happy to try and answer questions later in the meeting under the Q&A section, but wanted you to be aware there are some of those resources out there already to help make that go, and we'll try and assist you as we can. Kyle, I think that's all I have on that one, Russ. Who's up?
Yep. Now it's me actually. Last week we talked about the SBA, Small Business Administration Disaster Loan Program. Last Friday it was pending yet. The governor had made the appropriate necessary declaration, but we were waiting for word from the federal government that it's been accepted, and it has been accepted. So that is open. They're willing to take applications. Just a little summary on the program. All Minnesota counties are eligible. Small businesses as well as then nonprofit entities are available. This is up to $2 million. You can get $25,000 without collateralization. It's a 30-year amortization. If you're a small business, it's at 3 3/4% interest. If you're a nonprofit, it'll be at 2 3/4% interest. In this program, you apply directly to the SBA. There is no intermediary lender like there typically is with the 504 programs or other SBA programs. Once you get approved, you can have that money sitting in that account for up to 6 months before you have to make a decision on whether you need to draw down that to help you through the current situation. And then once you accept the funds and you do a drawdown, then a payment will typically start in 4 months. Now we're going to throw out a lot of different financial programs that are available. There's a big one coming up, the federal stimulus bill. But before you reach out to any of these programs, have a conversation with your local banker. They're your partners. They want your business to survive through this. They want you to maintain and be a customer. Talk to your bankers about what the appropriate action might be. They may be able to make some concessions to help you through the immediate problem. Also talk to your accountant if you have one, but get some professional business advice. I'm not a banker. I'm not a professional business consultant. I'm certainly not a CPA, but do an assessment before you all start reaching out to all these different funds and obtaining credit. So the SBA takes about 3 to 4 weeks to process the loans, and unfortunately, the last I heard is the website is prone to kind of freezing up and crashing because of the high volume. But that is a program that is available to you at this point. The next item I had on the agenda was to have Nancy Zolek from the Mankato Area Foundation talk about the program that they've put together with the Mankato Area United Way to assist the nonprofit sector. Now I didn't scroll down and I didn't see Nancy on before. She might be one of the callers. Nancy, are you with us this morning?
I am. Sorry about that. I was having trouble with my computer, so I jumped on the phone.
No, we're just very glad to have you join us, Nancy. Can you kind of spell out a little bit about the program that you've put together and the benefits that might be available to our nonprofits, please?
You bet. So early on, the United Way and the Mankato Area Foundation decided that kind of a collaborative approach we thought would be better in trying to handle this rather than both our organizations, support the nonprofit community, and rather than both of us trying to handle individual responses, we thought a more unified approach and a comprehensive look at what's going on would be more helpful. So that's why we created the Community Response Fund. It's actually being managed by the Mankato Area Foundation. So if people are looking for a way to apply, it's our website that you want to go to for that information. But again, the idea behind this was to give donors a place, kind of one central location where they can give to, which is really helpful, because when we started making phone calls to people on the front end and saying, would you like to be involved in this fund? Many of them said yes. We were thinking of giving money to so-and-so, and many of them were saying all the same people. And we know that there's a lot of nonprofits on the front line. So this by doing this, it allows the donors to feel comfortable that we're taking an overall look at the region and what the needs are. And it gives the nonprofits one place to go, because the other thing we know is that they don't have time right now to go to reach out and say, well, I'm going to apply to this group and I'm going to apply to this group and apply to this group. There just isn't the time to do that. So, so again, that's why we created the fund. We're really trying to get funds out on a rolling basis. As we get money in, we're trying to, disperse money out. I will tell you that the initial grants that we've given out so far have been primarily housing, homeless shelters, food shelves, people that were dramatically impacted on day one. But we have others that are applying to us. We're not really, to be really honest, we're not really in a position to be covering payroll. As you described, there's some other options out there. We're helping to try to get money to people who are distributing food, who are trying to, just really be on the front lines. What else would you like to know?
Is there a specific service area, Nancy?
We're using a very loose term called the region. St. Peter is clearly in that service area. We also realize it's not, typically United Way has a very specific service area and very specific agencies that they're working with. They have loosened that. The Mankato Area Foundation, it doesn't really have as specific a service area. So we're open to that too. So, again, the term the region's a little bit broad, but we just didn't want to people to feel limited in their ability to apply.
Very good. Thank you very much, Nancy. If you can stick around, there might be some questions if you have time. Otherwise, I know you're very, very busy, but thanks to both the United Way and the Mankato Area Foundation and you and Barb Cowles for your leadership of that. What a blessing to have that and the assistance to our nonprofits. So thank you very much, Nancy. The next,
Russ,
excuse me. Yep.
Could I just make one last pitch, and that is that if you, at a time like this, people also, as much as they're impacted, they also get very generous. And so if you could help, if anybody that's out there could help drive donors as well as nonprofits to our website, that would be helpful as well. So, the more people that choose to be philanthropic at a time like this, the more help we can be to, again, those folks really on the front line. So that's just my little pitch. Thanks.
Thank you. You were due that, Nancy, for joining us. So thank you very much for your time. We're going to move on. We're going to talk about the small business loan program that's available from the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development. I've asked John Considine III from our RETA Association to speak on that, and John joined us last week. So welcome back, John.
Thanks very much, Russ. Appreciate the time to help share a little bit about the different programs that are available. One thing I do want to highlight off the get-go, things are ever changing right now. The programs that we're working with from the SBA and from DEED, really try to think of those as bridge programs. The stimulus package that Patrick Baker with Greater Mankato Growth will be talking about a little bit, that's where a lot of the meat is, a lot better terms with some of those programs, and we want to just highlight what is available right now. So to start off with, the Minnesota DEED Small Business Emergency Loans. Those are going to range from $2,500 to $35,000 based upon business's economic injury. They're going to be interest-free, and they can be paid back monthly over 5 years. And that first payment, you won't have to make that for 6 months once you're approved of the loan. There will be some partial forgiveness available associated with the loan, but that's going to be worked through with the lenders that are available across the state. So in our region, you're going to want to contact the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation. In particular, you can call and ask for Diane Lewis. She's the point person right now. I'm going to give you a couple more details about the loan and kind of highlight some of the things that you'll want to make sure that you follow up on after this call today. First off, it's obviously going to be focused on Minnesota businesses, and I think everybody on the call is within that guideline. You have to be an existing business for 1 year to access the funds, and you have to be able to provide collateral of at least 20% of the loan. To get additional details on that, again, contact the Initiative Foundation. Loans cannot be provided to businesses that derive income from passive investments without operational ties to operating businesses, and primarily generate income. You cannot generate your income from gambling activities. And the big part about this loan program is that it's focused on the governor's executive orders that closed a whole bunch of businesses. So think about bars and restaurants and that kind of thing. If you want to get more information on this, you can visit the deed website and make sure you're looking for the Small Business Emergency Loan Program. If you Google MN Deed, DEED, and search for emergency loans, you'll get to the right page, and it has all the information on there. Now, this program is going to be available likely starting on Monday. So when you take a look at the Initiative Foundation's website, they are currently taking on a first come, first served basis, just a wait list so that they'd be following up. So, throughout this presentation, I wouldn't be offended if I saw people on their phones or, working on something else, but I'd highly encourage you to take a look at this bridge loan program. Now, it's a bridge loan, so if you're going to be able to access some of those other stimulus dollars that'll be coming out, or the current SBA program, they're going to ask that you pay back this loan program. Now, don't be worried about that, because if you get a loan from Deed and then you get the SBA stuff, they're not going to say, okay, pay that back right away. They can have a little bit of flexibility there. And also, if you were to get the Deed loan and then went into the SBA loan, that portion of the Deed loan will not be forgiven. So you'd have to pay back the whole amount, but they will work with you in flexibility. Initiative Foundation is a great partner, and they've been doing partnerships with the state of Minnesota for many years, dating back to the 80s. So they're a great resource for our region. So again, I want to highlight the fact that you want to contact Diane Lewis with the Initiative Foundation to get more information. That's the point of contact for this region. They're serving a 20-county area. There's other lenders that are listed on the website, but your first point of contact should be the Initiative Foundation. That's what I got, Russ.
Thank you. Thank you very much, John. You can tell why intelligence is in his business title, but a very strong partnership of ours. Next, we're going to bring in Patrick Baker, the Vice President and Director of Governmental and Institutional Affairs for Greater Mankato Growth, and again, available to us through our affiliation with the Regional Economic Development Alliance. He's going to talk first about the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, and then he's going to talk about the game changer. We said last Friday that we require a strong federal response. This problem is larger than any of the individual states. And as we mentioned earlier, states like Minnesota have an obligation to have a balanced budget. So funds transferred to help with the response here would have to come from other programs in Minnesota. So the federal government does appear that they're going to have a response very, very shortly. And we were going to wait until next Friday, but again, this is probably a program that's going to provide the most assistance. So Patrick, I'm going to turn it over to you, Families First, and then you just segue yourself right into the CARES Act.
Great. Thank you, Russ. Appreciate the time that everyone has this morning to share with me. Intelligence is not in my title because I do deal with the federal government, so that would not be appropriate. But I do want to go through a couple pieces of legislation that Russ talked about. First is the Families First Coronavirus Act. This is the so-called Stimulus 2.0 that the federal government passed about 2 weeks ago, about a week and a half ago. That program had 2 new paid leave programs that all businesses under 500 are responsible for implementing and offering to their employees. So the first program that's available is known as the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act. This provision requires that employers provide 2 weeks of paid leave at either the employee's regular rate or 2/3 of their rate. And I'm going to cover quickly what qualifies you to get 2 weeks of paid leave at your regular rate versus that 2/3. So to get the full rate at 2 weeks, the individual has to be under government ordered quarantine, been advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine, or is experiencing symptoms of COVID-19 and seeking a medical diagnosis, or is caring for an individual subject to 1 and 2. You can get 2/3 paid leave if you are caring for a child and your school or daycare has closed. Okay, so that's the first program, 2 weeks paid leave, either at the full rate or 2/3 rate, depending on basically whether you're ill with COVID-19 or suspect to be ill with COVID-19. 2/3 your regular rate if you're at home caring for your child because your school or daycare has closed. So that's program 1. Program 2 is an extension of federal FMLA. And basically what the federal government is doing here is requiring that employers provide 10 weeks of paid leave for the specific purpose of an individual or an employee being home to take care of their child because the school or daycare has closed. So that's 10 weeks, and it's provided at 2/3 of the regular rate of pay. The important thing to note here is that the federal government is 100% covering the costs of these paid leave programs. They are doing that through basically a deferral of payroll taxes. So when you go to cut your payroll checks, you can withhold the amount of money from your payroll tax that you would otherwise pay to the federal government. You can withhold that to pay those paid leave wages. So that program is out there. Employers are supposed to have that up and running by April 1st. I know in some of the preliminary guidance that has come out, the Department of Labor, the IRS are going to be pretty liberal in terms of not enforcing that for the first 30 days or so to make sure that employers understand what's required of them and how this program is going to work. The other piece of it is preliminary guidance has come out. You can, from both IRS and Department of Labor, you can find that on our blog, greatermankatoblog.com. That's greatermankatoblog.com. We have the IRS guidance and the Department of Labor guidance up there right now. But note that it is preliminary at this point. We are still waiting for the final guidance to be issued, hopefully this week or next. And that will have all the forms and the specific instructions for how you can do that payroll withholding, et cetera. So, and then I think it will also have some resources that employers can provide to their employees discussing the opportunities they now have with that paid leave program under the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. Okay, so I'll happy to take questions on that, but that is Federal Bill 1. Federal Bill 2 that many of you have heard about is currently making its way through Congress. The Senate passed it late Wednesday night, and the House is expected to take it up today, and we'll see whether that passes. Suspect that it will, but maybe some parliamentary things going on there as that completes sort of its path through Congress. The president has said that he will sign it, but as John and Russ have been alluding to, the bill that's currently moving through Congress, the so-called Stimulus 3.0, it's the Federal CARES Act, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, or the CARES Act. This is a pretty significant game changer across the board as it relates to coronavirus response, but in particular related to employers, both large and small. So I'm going to quickly highlight a couple of programs that are included in that legislation that's currently making its way through. The first and most significant is the Paycheck Protection Program. So in this $2 trillion stimulus bill, about $350 billion of it is set aside for this Paycheck Protection Program. As you know, and as we've sort of talked about up until now, the only sort of resources available from a business perspective have been loan-based, whether that's through the SBA Emergency Loan Program or whether that's through the DEED Emergency Loan Program that John just talked about. The Paycheck Protection Program is a forgivable loan program that will be administered through the SBA, but essentially will provide all businesses under 500 with 8 weeks of cash flow assistance, 100% federally guaranteed loans, and basically it's for businesses that maintain their payroll during this emergency. So a lot more to come here, but essentially you can get a loan, and if you maintain your payroll through the coronavirus crisis here, you can get that loan deferred and also forgiven. So a lot more details to come, but that one is going to be a game changer. It's going to be through the SBA. The best advice that we have right now is to continue to apply through the SBA Emergency Loan Program if that's something that is interest to you, because that SBA Emergency Loan Program will be able to be converted into a Paycheck Protection Program loan once that program gets stood up. So that's the brief synopsis there. There's some resources in the bill for small business assistance centers. So many of you may have relationships with the SBDC based out of MSU. They'll be getting some additional resources to step up their small business consulting services as part of the coronavirus response. The bill also is going to make the terms and sort of eligibility requirements of these emergency SBA loans more favorable, including essentially giving you the first $200,000 collateral free, and also giving you an advance of $10,000 within 3 days that is also able to be forgiven. A couple other quick things there. If you have an existing SBA loan that isn't one of these emergency loans, so that's an existing 7A loan, Community Advantage, 504 micro loan, the bill is going to require SBA to pay 6 months of your payments on that loan. So the SBA will just cover 6 months worth of payments on your existing SBA loans that are non-emergency related. The bill is going to pretty significantly expand the unemployment insurance program. It will cover full wages essentially for most employees who get laid off during the crisis. We'll also provide additional 13 weeks of federally provided unemployment insurance. So essentially an employee could be eligible, I think it's around about 40 weeks of unemployment at nearly full pay for most of that time for the coronavirus response. Also, you've heard about the cash payments. So all U.S. residents, either under $75,000 for wages or under $150,000 if you're married, will be getting $1,200 checks and $500 checks per child that will come to you automatically if you filed your taxes online. It will come to you automatically through your direct deposit. So I don't need to do anything there. A couple other things related to payroll tax deferral. There's going to be a new program, again, for employers that retain staff during this time. They'll be eligible for a tax credit of 50% of wages paid by employers to employees during this COVID crisis. And there's some additional qualifications that go on there in terms of business impact, et cetera. There's some caps on there, but just know that that program will be coming along as well. Delay of payment of employer payroll taxes. Basically, another provision in the bill is going to allow all employers and self-employed individuals to defer payment of the employer's share of the Social Security tax that they'd otherwise be responsible for paying. And that is going to be deferred basically for the year, but it's only a deferral you'll be responsible for paying half of it back in 2021, the other half back in 2022. So it's more of a cash flow deferral than it is a grant. So there's some other tax issues in here, additional things that will benefit the city in terms of expansion of child care and development block grant programs, et cetera. So there's the quick summary. Again, we have this full summary up on our blog, greatermankatoblog.com. I would just say that, I know there's going to be a lot of information. I know a lot of this is going to feel overwhelming, and I get that. Just understand that once Congress passes this bill, there's going to be at minimum a 10-day to probably 2-week, if not longer, sort of rollout of all of these programs. All of the federal agencies that will be responsible for administering these programs will all be providing much more detailed guidance. There's nothing you need to do today on some of these things until we get that further guidance, but just know that these options are going to be available to businesses, additional tools in the toolbox, so to speak, and just really encourage you to start to think strategically about how some of these things may impact your business. So with that, I will quit talking and let Russ go to the next topic.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Obviously a lot of information, probably too much to get your hands around today, but maybe we can get a little bit of an update next week when we speak again. Patrick, I do see there were some questions that were posted in the chat about the family leave. Would you be able to stick around until the end when we do our question and answer?
Sure can.
Okay, and then I also see that Councilwoman Johnson posted the U.S. Department of Labor employee poster on Families First coronavirus tax. So thank you, Councilwoman Johnson.
Great.
The next program I'm going to speak about is the city's response. And the Economic Development Authority met yesterday, and I see there's some members, Corey Abels, Councilman DeVos, Councilman Johnson, I saw her on here. I don't know if they've left, but the EDA met yesterday at noon on the GoToMeeting platform, which was our first, and I think it went rather well. But they have recommended what we're calling the COVID-19 micro loan program for city council consideration. And the city council is going to take this up quickly. They're going to have a special meeting on Monday evening to talk about this. And if they approve it, we should be able to start getting the information out and applications as early as Tuesday morning. I know Ed's committed from the chamber to help me distribute it to chamber members. And then we've assembled a mailing list of the non-chamber members that you've been getting from me. The purpose of the loan is obviously to assist the businesses with their immediate cash flow needs. And as you go forward, this could be a bridge loan. You could access our funds, get the USDA, or excuse me, the small business funds at a later date from the federal response. But we want to step up. It's very similar to what we did in 2009 when we had the construction mitigation microloans. But this is going to be limited to businesses that typically those that had been impacted by the first two governor's executive orders. So the businesses that are eligible would be the bars and restaurants, the clubs and lodges, retail sales, the daycare centers, fitness and health studios, hotel, motel, public assembly, so think places where you'd have a wedding dance or such, studio and galleries, and then cultural services. There'd be operations such as the art center or museums that may be in town. The EDA is recommending that individual businesses be eligible for up to a $10,000 loan that would be made available at 0% interest. We would defer the payments until June 1st of 2021. So you'd have just a little over 12 months, hopefully, to get your feet back under you, get your cash flows back where perhaps on the way up to where they had been. When repayment does start, it would be established at a flat $100 a month, regardless of whether you sought the full amount of the loan or received a lesser amount. I mentioned the maximum loan is $10,000, but some may only be eligible for a lesser amount. So how we're going to determine your maximum loan amount is we are going to add your mortgage, lease, or rent expense. And we're going to add that then to your monthly utility payments, your city bill, your gas bill, your garbage bill, and your internet and phone service bills. If they add up to $2,500 for the month, you'd be eligible for the full $10,000, because then we'll take that monthly times 4 to determine your maximum amount of loan. So if your monthly expenses are only $2,000, you'd only be eligible for an $8,000 loan. But they'd all be provided at 0% interest, and payment would begin in June of 2021 at a flat $100 a month. Excuse me, dollars a month. So we hope you can use this to pay your rent or your lease obligations, to keep your utilities on and current, and then also if you have some just general cash flow needs to help cushion you through this. The application is 2 pages. It's very simple, and then the collateralization will just be your signature. We'll have a promissory note. If the loan is made to an LLC, then it would be appropriate for us to have a personal guarantee of the business owner also. But that's the program. The city council is going to talk about it Monday night in a special meeting. And if so, we're going to be ready to roll out the information and the promotional materials as early as Tuesday morning. We're going to administer these. Typically, we're going to try to do it through electronic means. I'll fill out the loan forms, I distribute them to the borrower, and then I've worked it out with City Attorney Brandt's office that you'd show up at his office to sign, and one of his staff then would notarize your signature. Then he would report back to me, and then we'd try to get the funds, either the check cut or to get deposits into your account as soon as we're very able to do it. So we know that there's a lot of stress going on with this situation, and we want to be as much of assistance as we can. If there's any questions on that, you can call me, or you can add them into the chat bar, or send it to Barbara L at stpetermn.gov. Also, I posted Barbara's email in the chat, so if you want to send a question directly to her, or as I said in my letter I sent out, you can contact Barbara to get signed up for the Hot Sheet, which is another electronic newsletter the city puts out, which has some very good information. And in this particular issue, there's some good information about mental health. And this is an unprecedented situation. There's a lot of stress, there's a lot of anxiety and unknown, and I personally don't respond well to the unknown. I'm a planner, for God's sakes. So if you feel it yourself, get some help, get mental health services, be especially considerate of your children. I know in 9/11, I had young children, and I reached out to a professional on what should I look for. And kids don't manifest, stress the way that the way that adults do. So keep an eye on that. There are providers in town such as Counseling Services Southern Minnesota, Sioux Trails Mental Health, Lutheran Social Services, Catholic Charities. I know I'm missing many, but most of those do take insurance. Then some of them do have a sliding scale if you're facing some cash difficulties. So make sure you take care of yourself, your family, your neighbor, your employees. You're also very important to us, and we want to make sure that we can help you through this to the best ability we can. I do want to mention that if you've had a reduction, or your employees have had a reduction in hours, or have been laid off completely, they can still sign up for that unemployment insurance. Apply online. Last time I reported that they had a queue of about 400 to 500 callers waiting to talk to someone live, and the wait time was 50 minutes. So unless you want to put it on your speakerphone and try to get some other work, I don't have 50 minutes to sit online waiting for a phone call. So again, you can sign up for the Hot Sheet at Barbara L at stpetermn.gov. I want to thank you all. I think we peaked out at 54, 55, but if you think this is beneficial, share it with your co-businesses, your friends, and they can tune us next Friday, because we'll plan to be here at 7 o'clock, at 9 o'clock next Friday morning, to give you an update and take a snapshot at where we're at 1 week later. I do see we had some questions in there. I'm going to turn things back over to City Administrator Todd Prafke, and he's kind of going to facilitate the question and answer and direct them to which of us he thinks could better provide a comprehensive answer for you. So thank you for joining us. God bless you, and have a nice week going forward.
All right, thanks, Russ and everyone. Let's take a breath. Whew, a lot of information. We'll take a breath for just a second. This part of the meeting is really set to try and answer questions that you might have, or direct you in the right location. Maybe it's a website, maybe we can share a phone number and email address so that you can have some personal contact if you need to have contact with somebody about some of this. So let me get started, and we'll work the chat room kind of first. And so let me go, Patrick, you're probably going to be first up for this. So Christina and Helena have questions about PTO and full-time employees, and how do the rules apply to the new state legislation that provides for additional time off for folks. And so I'm wondering if you can chime in, or who that might be best. John, maybe that's you. Hey, Patrick, you got to hit your microphone for us.
Okay, sorry about that.
There you go. Now you're going.
Rookie
now you're
move.
going.
I've been doing about 15 of these this week, and you got to figure out how to unmute myself by the time Friday rolled around. But so I can answer that, or take a first stab at it at least. The new paid leave programs that were passed by Congress are additive to your existing PTO plans. So if you're offering 10 weeks of PTO, paid PTO to an employee, you'll add an additional 2 weeks onto that for that first 2-week program, and you'll add an additional 10 weeks onto your FMLA plan for those that are going to take that FMLA leave to take care of their kid for 10 weeks. So they're additive, and essentially the regulations coming out specify that you can't require employees to take sort of your own PTO before they access this federal PTO. The employees will be able to get first access to this federal PTO if they so choose, and then can also use any PTO plans that you were currently offering as an employer. Hope that answers the question. If not, I can take another run at it.
So let me jump in a little bit. When Patrick's talking about PTO, he's talking paid time off. That can be either vacation or sick. It doesn't, if your organization, your business doesn't have PTO, then it's added to your sick. So we want to make sure that everybody understands that as well. And we will on our website post a link with some additional information for that. We really encourage you, because of the nature of this, to really read that very thoroughly, because there are some nuances in that. One of the other questions talked about full-time versus part-time. And Patrick, I don't know if you can talk about that issue where it now does include part-timers.
Yeah, and basically the thing there is, in general, you have to look at an average of how many hours that part-time employee is traditionally working over a 2-week period, and that sort of becomes their sort of a per capita, or a sort of adjusted rate based on those part-time hours. So if they're traditionally working 40 hours in a 2-week period, then they'll be eligible for that 40 hours of that 2-week PTO if they're taking that.
So let me jump in on that one again too. So let me use an example with the city. As some of you know, we have part-timers that work at the library. And so we have Mabel that works at the library, and she wasn't getting any paid time off before, as an example. She wasn't getting any, and she worked an average of 10 hours per week. So 20 hours in a pay period. Even though she didn't have PTO or sick leave or anything like that before, now she's eligible for that 10 hours per week or 20 hours per pay period. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I just add, so on our blog, we do have the link to the U.S. Department of Labor preliminary guidance on this paid leave question. Highly encourage you to check that out. It is very extensive. There is a very extensive FAQ section that really gets into the nitty-gritty of how you calculate these paid time hours, what you do with telework employees. There's a lot of nuance, as Todd said, and that website's a great resource.
Thank you, Patrick. That's really helpful. So let me get to some other questions that are on here. I think Julie's sending out kind of a message of we can do this. Remember that we're basically shut down from July 4th to December 4th in 2009, and we survived. We also had many closures in town during floodings and bridges, and the city helped with the loan too. We can do this. So thanks for saying that, Julie. That is true. There's going to be a lot of resources flowing. I know right now it's a really anxious time, but there's going to be resources flowing. So be ready, start thinking, contacting the folks that help you, whether it's your accountant or your business advisor. We talked about the SBA loan program. We also talked about the small Business Development Center, and they do great work in helping folks plan, and so they might be a wonderful resource for you. Emily's asking, will salon and spas fall under the EDA loan? Russ, can you talk about that one for us?
Yeah, I feel like I owe them an apology, Mr. Krafke. They're certainly impacted by the governor's order, but I did not have them on the list as salons, spas, and barbershops. And I know Emily's asking, she owns the salon in the Carnegie Library. I know Nate was on earlier. Yeah, I wrote up the list before the second order came out. So I would think the council will have a discussion on that probably at Monday night. I have to bring forward what the EDA recommended, and they recommended my recommendation to them. So, but the city council will take this up on Monday night, and I know there's some council members that are participating in the call today. I know there's some EDA members, if they had comments they'd like to make to me, but I will certainly bring up the issue on Monday night as the city council talks about this. Mr. Krafke, I should also note the other thing that the EDA talked about is if you are a current loan recipient from St. Peter EDA and you're feeling stressed and you would benefit from a deferral of payments, we will offer a 4-month deferral of your EDA revolving loan payment for the current obligations upon your request. You have the choice to make interest-only payments if you choose, but we will accommodate a full deferral of principal and interest. Again, Emily, Nate, I apologize for missing you when I put that together for the EDA.
All right, thanks, Russ. We also had a question earlier. I got to scroll back up here that I want to make sure. Heather Barron asked about unemployment for self-employed persons. So I don't know, John, I think you talked about that maybe last meeting. Is that right? Can you talk to that one? If not, I can give it a stab because I'm pretty sure I know the answer to that one.
Yeah, the general rule of thumb is that if you had paid into the unemployment program, you would be eligible. So in the case of, a sole proprietor, there are other programs coming through the legislation that Patrick had been talking about. Patrick, I don't know if there's a specific element in there that's labeled unemployment assistance, but for a sole proprietor, they might be eligible for one of the other programs you kind of spoke a little bit about.
Yeah, I can add to that quick. I mean, so currently under the state's unemployment insurance system, you're right in that basically the only folks eligible there are folks that had been paying into the unemployment insurance system. However, the federal legislation that's currently under consideration would expand the unemployment insurance system and basically create a temporary unemployment assistance program to provide payment to those not traditionally eligible for unemployment benefits, including self-employed, independent contractors, those with limited work history, and others who are not able to work as a direct result of coronavirus. So obviously a lot more information and detail to come on that one as the state implements that new federal guidance. So stand by there, but just know that there's going to be a very broad expansion of unemployment insurance coming.
All right, thanks, gentlemen. So I'm now going to check. I don't see any more questions in the chat. I'm looking quick to see if we had any additional email questions come in. We didn't. So now we'll go to the stream here. Oh, we had one in the chat. Just jump in there. Heather Barron says, thanks. We're happy to help. Heather, if you have other questions, let us know. And again, on our website, we're going to have a lot of information, and Patrick's and John's website and the blog that they're doing will have some great information as well. So now I'm going to get off the chat here and go to, if folks have questions out there, I'd love it if you if you're on video with us, if you want to raise your hand, I'll scroll through really quick so we get your question first, and then we'll go to callers if they have questions. Anybody have an additional question that they want to get out? I'm scrolling quick. Keep your hand up. Patty, I know you're just thinking. You don't have your hand up there. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. I've been doing a lot of that kind of thinking too. Okay, Lisa says thank you. Okay. Okay, let's go to callers. I'm going to scroll back down and see if we have any callers that are trying to jump in. I have a couple callers on here, and so now it's down to just a couple. Caller 14 and caller 13. I don't know if when you call in on the phone, whether it tells you what number you are, but if you're one of those, if you got a question, now's the time to jump in. All right, we have one last chat, and then I'm going to cover. Who's cutting your hair, Todd? I got to tell you, Nate, I'm going to have to get a barrette pretty quick to hold it up here if something doesn't happen. I can tell you that for sure. All right. One other one that I want to mention that I have had a number of phone calls on, so I wanted to throw this out there, and we'll have this information on our website. I addressed it early in the meeting, but if you were late to the meeting, I want to make sure that you have a chance to see this as well. And again, it'll be on our website. Here's some information, and I'm just going to show it. And I know this is cheesy, and if you watch my video blog, you see me do this all the time, but we'll have it on our website. This is information that can help you identify whether you are one of those critical businesses. Again, we will have this on our website, and if you need more assistance, please feel free to give us a call. There's also a website that we'll include in the link that helps you kind of self-analyze. If you know your North American Industry Classification System code, we'll be able to help you with that.
Adobe has a question.
Hey, Todd, can I just
Barb's
add
saying
quick?
Scott has a question. So hold on a second. Scott jumped in there. Scott Doby had a question. Scott, I'm looking for you on the screen here.
Well,
to see if I can find you. Jump ahead. Okay, jump ahead, Scott.
So that I can't be seen. Can we come to work if the doors are closed in retail? Because we've got projects to do. We also have dry cleaning, drop off and pickup. And I'm confused on if we can accept it or not accept it or what we can do.
So Scott, I'll be honest with you. I don't know that I have an exact answer to that. I know I got that question yesterday and I did research last night. I was up a little bit late working on that. And I know dry cleaning is exempted, but whether you have to have your door closed for projects and those kind of things, I'm not sure. Let me do this though. Russ or I will try and get back to you yet today and give you an answer on that. I don't know if Patrick or John maybe have a full answer. Maybe you've been researching that more than I was able to do last night. John, you were nodding, so I think you may have an answer.
Yeah, so for with the businesses that had to be closed by the state, a conference call this morning from the Department of Employment and Economic Development said those folks that need to get into their offices to do customer related activities, they can do that. That is allowed underneath the executive order.
All right, so Scott, that seems like an answer.
Yep,
Yeah, and I'll just add this generally on this whole question of essential business versus non-essential. Essentially, the guidance from the Department of Labor or from the Department of Employment and Economic Development has been you basically do a 3-step process to determine whether you're essential or not. And the first step in that is to look at the governor's executive order. Within that executive order, there is an 11-page document from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security that has those lists of businesses that are essential. The first place to go to see if you are essential is that list. If you think that you are not included on that list, then you can look to the actual text of the governor's executive order, and there are some expansions onto that federal list that the governor provides. If you still don't think you can fit under any of those definitions, and I guess what I've been encouraging our businesses is to read those definitions liberally, in the sense of they're pretty high level, and you're going to need to interpret what that means for your particular business or industry. The link that Todd has is those NAICS codes. Just understand that those NAICS codes are sort of the third list or the third priority document of determining whether you are essential or not. I know that DEED is continuing to update that NAICS code list. When it first came out, there were quite a bit of confusion and quite a few industries that were clearly essential under the governor's executive order, but weren't reflected as such in that NAICS code list. So my only advice there is to take that NAICS code list with a little bit of a grain of salt. The 2 primary source documents for determining whether you're essential or not is that governor's executive order and that federal 11-page document from Homeland Security on essential business. So just encourage you to look there first before you get to the NAICS code, because there's been some confusion and there's a little bit of a lag there in terms of matching that up with what is really in that executive order.
So thank you guys. St. Peter, give Russ a call. We're happy to help you out as best as we can with that if you need some more assistance with that. I had a number of people call the police chief yesterday. Don't call the police chief, call Russ on that one. That's a better place to call. He'll review that and we'll help you as best as we can. All right, anybody else have their hand up that we want to make sure that we get in? Patty, I see you waving your hand. You're up next, Patty.
Now I do have a question. Up until today, I've been operating by appointment, where people would have to call me and I could let one person in at a time. And I'm assuming that online or post office or telephone is always fine. But if I live here, so I live in my business, so it's residential and business. How does that affect? I mean, the appointment thing, does that need to go away? Do you understand my question?
I don't know the answer to that one either, Patty.
Okay.
Let us try and help you. I don't know. I'm trying to look for John's image here. I kind of covered him up with something else, if he knows, or if Patrick doesn't know. If not, Russ or I will get back to you, Patty, as best as we can. John, you opened up your mic, so I think you might have an answer.
I'm not sure if I have the answer you'll want to hear. You know, I would double check everything in the executive order. My opinion is that it might have to. I know that may not be what you want to hear, but I'd double check the executive order, and I can post the link to the executive order in the chat.
Okay, the online and with the post office and telephone, that is okay, correct?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Somebody had asked for Russ's phone number to get posted on here. Give me just a second. I'm going to get that on here. Oh, Barbara's telling me she did it. She was faster than I was. All right, I got somebody else's hand up. I got to scroll. We got too many people. I think it was Christina. Maybe.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Go. Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. I'm just wondering how we get our name on the list on the Chamber of Commerce website for businesses that are open. We have a chiropractic clinic, so we do see acute patients during this time.
Ed Lee,
Ed,
you want to
that's
jump in?
you. Open up your microphone. There you go.
Hey, thanks very much for the question, Christina. Just go to just stpeterchamber.com, and you'll see the buttons right away for COVID pages, and look for the business page button, and there's a form there, and you can fill out that form quick, and that'll come to us, and we'll get that updated right away. Otherwise, just email it directly to me at edlee@stpeterchamber.com, just stpeterchamber.com. Or give me a call at 934-3400. Invitation to everybody.
Okay, thank you.
And I see
And Barb Larson Taylor put up the website there too. Yeah, Barb Larson Taylor put up the website there too if you go to the chat at the bottom of the chat. And John Considine has been putting up some additional information there, so check those out. All right, I'm going to do a quick review back through. We didn't have any calls last time. I'm going to try and scroll up and down since we have too many folks for me to see on one screen. If you have a question and you want to make that known or ask it now, get your hand up here. I'm going to scroll one more time through. All right, let me cover a couple more things just quick. And then Russ and I will stay on the meeting for a few minutes. So if people have other things or are looking or they want to copy something off that chat before we close the meeting, you can copy it or write it down off that chat here for a few minutes. We know we talked about further guidance quite a little bit. So stay tuned. We're going to continue to send information out with our partners. Rita's been fantastic, as you can see from this meeting. Ed's doing a wonderful job there at the chamber, and Russ is putting information out there, so stay tuned. A lot of this stuff continues to develop, and we will, unless you tell us otherwise, we're still planning to have another one of these meetings next week at 9 o'clock, and the link for that go-to meeting will still be out there. Trying to think if there's anything else. Now, we've had a couple of chats come in quick. We don't want to cut anybody off too quickly. We want to give everybody a chance and help as we can. Julie Fredrickson says, thanks to you, Julie. We want to help you. Brad says he's going to run, so that's great. And Barbara Larson Taylor is typing up a meeting summary and compiling the information. The chamber is going to email that, the notes out. So that'll be fantastic. We'll make sure to try and provide a link if we can do that somehow on our COVID business page with the city. All right, we're right at an hour from when we started. That's a concise meeting with a boatload, a shipload of information. So if you need more, let us know. We're happy to visit and help as best as we can. Watch for that city program to come out. That'll probably unroll a lot faster than some of the other programs, so watch for that. And as Russ said, for our salons and barbershops and spas in town, we will talk with the council about an adjustment as we get to Monday for that. So rest assured they'll have that discussion on Monday. All right, anybody have anything else? So nice to see many of you. Last call. Anything else through the chat or raising your hand? All right, we hope to see you again next week. If you need help, spread this information around to your friends, other businesses. We'd love to see them, hear them, and help them if this has been helpful. Thanks a lot. That's going to be the end. So hang tight. We're going to turn off the recording. We'll just hang along a little bit. Thanks again to everybody.